This is Pamela at the historic and haunted Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami Beach, Florida. And you are listening to Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars.
Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars, the podcast that blends the modern scooter lifestyle with a twist of the paranormal over a cool cocktail.
Yeah, bar reviews, scooter talk, ghost stories. We are an independent podcast that follows a group of modern and vintage Vespa riders in search of classic pubs, dive bars, and haunted taverns. This is not smart or safe, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. As a disclaimer, we never encourage drinking and scooting and keep our intake to...
Bullshit.
Well, you didn't even let me finish. Okay, well, something close to it. We read that.
All right.
We're careful.
Yeah, welcome to episode 34. This one's called The New West Riders. Like the New Catholics, only we're New West Riders. We have two great chats today with Howard Raines, the publisher of Scooter Zine out of Arizona, which is, well, a scooter magazine, and Mike Murphy, the owner and Renaissance man of the Magic Bus Tours in Fort Collins, Colorado. Both of those places are part of the New West. Get it?
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
Should be really fun. Anyway, we've also taken at least 3 rides since our last podcast here in the very mild winter. And we went to 2 bars that we've never been before in the Tacoma area. So this thing is going to fill up fast as a really, really cool podcast.
So we have a busy show.
We do. That's right. I'm doing a transition. What do you think? All right. In studio today, we have Scout. There you are.
Hello, hello.
And Lizard.
Hey.
And Pendominomo. No.
Good afternoon.
Say it right.
Pendominono.
And what does that mean again?
Pendominono.
And
self-explanatory.
I am a passionate paranormal and pub biped ready to podcast dude. Let me say it one more time. I'm a passionate paranormal and pub biped ready to podcast.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Nice.
So how are things going, Mark? Last time you were playing basketball in the playoffs. What happened?
Put a fork in us. We're done. It was a quick end.
That's it?
Well,
2 and out?
Yeah, double elimination.
Were you happy with your team, though, overall?
Yes. As I shake my head, no.
How'd you feel about your team's execution?
About as poorly as I lie to my wife.
Oh, my God, she terrifies me, too.
Yeah.
That's it? That's everything that's going on in your world?
Well, we had a little pickleball tournament yesterday, an impromptu.
Oh, man, yeah.
You were there with the Lizard.
I came in second.
We were a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until you met your match.
Well, you and Molly have been playing for years.
It's the first time since high school.
When you and Molly first started playing together.
It wasn't pickleball. It was just pickle.
It was what do you call it?
Pickle slicer.
Hey, Lizard, what's been going on with you? You got somebody new coming to the family.
Yeah, as I told you guys last time, I have a new granddaughter, and who is now 6 weeks old, and coming over for dinner tonight, as a matter of fact. And also in my garage, I have a new Triumph Thruxton 900 Cafe Racer that I just picked up a couple weeks ago, and it's a pretty cool addition to my collection.
Yeah, no kidding. That's beautiful. You rode with us the other day. The one time you get to ride it with the scooters.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm still a scooter guy, but I have to, since I live so far away, I have to have a faster means of transportation when I want to get out and go.
Way to rationalize. That's very funny. And I was talking about another new member coming to your family.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
What'd you do this morning? Who'd you meet with?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we're getting a puppy.
Yeah. Let me tell you, that's nothing to act like.
Enjoy it while you have it.
I tried to put that in the back of my mind, but thanks for bringing it right back to the top.
Happy to do it. What's the name?
I don't have one yet.
What's the name? What kind of dog?
It's a mini Australian. Now they call them American Shepherds.
Is it going to have blue eyes?
I don't know yet.
Is that something you want?
I don't care.
If any of you listeners out there want this in 6 months, it will be potty trained and well fed by that point.
They have the best trainer in the world coming over to take care of it.
Ron is just hiring a surrogate. That's all that counts.
Oh, you don't even know.
dog nanny. Pendominono, what's going on with you? What's happening? You had family in town, didn't you?
Had some wonderful family in town. That's correct. Some sister-in-law and great nieces and nephews. And yeah, so it was a very nice weekend.
And now here you are stuck in the podcast garage behind moving blankets.
Behind some moving blankets and enjoying my afternoon.
Very nice.
And Mark, what about you?
Well,
You look so much better.
Thank you. It's my Marty Scorsese glasses. I got these new Caddis glasses that were they're made out of soapstone. They weigh about 2 pounds, and they're on my face. But here's the one thing I did. I tried the new Euphoric, the new botanical drink Kin, Kin. And
oh boy.
Yeah. So, I look for reasons not to drink alcohol these days because it fucks me up so much.
It looks like you're losing that battle.
Yeah. So this is an alcohol-free euphoric drink that uses nootropics and botanicals to create a hormonal rush. And they call it a rise or a rising when you do that.
I thought it was called a blue pill.
No, we talked about those.
I just
blue
want to
pills.
know, where do you find this shit?
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what? I keep
And how
up-
much
I keep
does it
up on
cost?
things. It's really it's really expensive. God, it's a little can of Kin. And weren't you just telling some stories about Appalachia?
A couple.
So, I drank. I came home. I got it. It arrived. I was so excited. I opened it, and I bought 4 cans that were pre-mixed, and then I bought a jar of the concentrate. So you add it to soda water,
Kind of like Tang.
sort of like Tang. No, it's a liquid.
What kind of a name is Poon?
And so, Kin, and I drank it down. So it was just Beth and I. And I go, Beth, you don't like to drink. So would you like to try this with me? You know how that went over.
Yeah.
So it isn't just you don't like to drink. It's just you don't want to do anything with me. So
Which is understandable.
So did anybody ask me what a nootropic is?
No, tell us.
So are you sure?
Positive.
Yeah,
Go
okay.
ahead.
So nootropics are cognitive technology.
Is that what's in this drink?
Yes, they support healthy brain function or enhance mental ability. So I'm taking this off a website that's called Thrivus, and they say that they're called smart drugs or the limitless pill, and they have a lot of different descriptions here, but I'll go through it really quickly. There are 6 features of nootropics, right? Enhancement of learning acquisition, resistance to impairing agents, so it supports brain health, facilitation of interhemispheric transfer of information from one side of the brain to the other. That's semi-hand.
Does
Not
it say
semi.
this is more optimal in your 30s instead of your 60s, or what? Is it too late?
Enhanced resistance to brain aggressions.
It impacts hearing, apparently.
Do you drink this shit and meditate at the same time?
I've been meditating. It's made me a better, happier person. Increased tonic subcortical control, so it improves focus and attention. And number 6, absence of usual pharmacological effects of neuropsychotropic drugs.
What does that mean?
Well, apparently I can't eat acid anymore. So, yeah.
What is that
So I
white
went ahead and
powdery
bought
stuff
it
on
and
your
drank it
nose?
without question. And I think the good folks at Kin are listening to this because they're big fans of the program. They sent that to me.
Oh.
Yeah. It was really nice.
For free?
No, I had to pay for it.
I was going to say, a sponsor?
We've been offered to have some sponsors, but not the ones that would really fit into the Church of Latter-day Saints. I just don't think it makes sense.
We have to be very selective.
Anyway, there is a thing here that says that all this sounds strange, but the question remains, can recreational nootropics get you high? Because they call it a rising. And according to this website, generally no, but they left a little wiggle room.
Well, what did you find?
You know what? My comment is this. I felt something. I did feel something. And
Did it move?
yeah, down near my knee. And
That was your dog.
I was going to say, Otto, get out of the room.
So of course, what I did is, this isn't working, so I had another one, and then Beth and I went to dinner, and I had a cocktail. So by the time I put the spicy food and 2 nootropics and a Ken and a cocktail together.
I'm sure that's exactly the way they intended to
I'm
use
sure you
it.
felt something.
I did. So anyway, that's my experience with Ken. I still have some, and I think maybe at some point, if we weren't having cocktails while we were doing this podcast, I might have one.
We are just so glad we're not your handler. What a full-time job that is.
Hey, did you guys see the video that Italjet UK did on social media?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That was really cool.
Great clip.
They took their
very cool.
Italjet super hot scooter video of the dragster, right? And they put our podcast comments on it and a conversation on it.
An overlay.
Yeah. It was really, really neat. So if you haven't seen that, check it out on our Facebook page or italjet.uk.facebook. I'm just making that up. I don't know what their website is. And go ahead, Keith.
Oh, well, by the way, I just wanted to bring up, I mentioned Bimota earlier, and I'm trying to skip
On the
this
podcast
ad.
or privately between
Well, just
all?
privately while we were discussing.
Okay, so
When we
you're
were
just
off the
bringing your
air.
phone up and going on a whole new subject?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're talking
going off
about
script.
we're talking about the Italjet, and its inspiration certainly came from the Tessie by Bimota. So you should look it up. They're both very cool.
But
You know,
right now-
sometimes
but right
sometimes
now-
we go to Joe's place in Bakota.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Let me see.
Oh,
There's the
right,
picture
yeah.
right there.
There it is.
That's cool.
Yeah,
So go to
just type in Bimota.
Bimota.com
Yeah.
and you can see their inspiration for the dragster, you think.
Well, I don't know. I think it was.
I thought it was more of the Italian motorcycle that we all love that's exposed tubular frame.
Hey, before you guys
Ducati?
get in an
Ducati.
argument,
Ducati. Well, I think it's more Bimota, but that's just my opinion.
Okay.
By the way, are you guys following us on Instagram and Twitter and the Facebook and all
course.
those sort of
I'm
things?
listening to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. You are. You finally decided after saying, well, I do them. Why do I listen to them? And I get
My
that.
commute's getting longer.
Yeah. If you
need
can't
something.
find it, just search Scooters, Ghosts, and Bars, and you will find us. We come up because, I don't know, there's not many people that combine those 3. There's maybe a few, but you know, out of all of them,
We're number
Number
one.
one.
Number
and
one.
our friend Maddie tested it last night, and we came up first.
and it actually kind of bothered her.
Yes. She thought she was going to beat us.
Yeah, right. Oh, shoot, look at this. You're on full page 1. Thank you, Google. Google.com.
Well,
Sponsors
we
of the
earned
show.
it.
And welcome and thanks to our new listeners in Peru, South Africa, and Bangladesh.
I noticed
Nice.
an accent on the early transition. Where was she from?
She was from the Fontainebleau Hotel La Côte.
I heard that, but
Yeah, and
What nationality?
she was a Brazilian.
Oh, because she was able to roll her R's. unlike
Perhaps
me.
Colombian. I can't remember, actually. She was darling and had a lot of charm and personality. Really liked her.
Is that what you call it?
I want to shout out to our New Zealand listeners down there. They're our number 2 area in the world behind. I mean, it was England, between England and Canada, and all of a sudden New Zealand has just blown up, man. They are number 2 behind the good old US of A. Behind.
Do you hear that, Great Britain? You better step it up.
I know. Well, they're still doing pretty good. We appreciate it.
Maybe the
Put the T down.
Maybe the coronavirus hasn't struck New Zealand yet.
Way to bring down the whole podcast. Hey, what up down there?
There's a Commonwealth connection there, though.
Anyway, thanks for the listens in New Zealand, Peru, and Bangladesh. How's the water? And that was out of bounds, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
Really crying himself.
Okay, if any of you or anybody else you know, anybody has a ghost or a cryptid or a UFO or anything paranormal story to share, just please send it to us at markh@chasingghost.net or record it on your phone's voice recorder and send it through our website at chasingghost.net or social media or any of the numerous ways you can get in touch with
We
us.
do have a team of operators standing by right now for your call.
You will receive a collectible sticker once you actually send that in.
This is Stephanie at the Brass Lantern in Tacoma, Washington, and you are listening to Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars.
Well,
Nice.
The Brass Lantern, that was one of those firsts for us the other
yeah,
day.
we're going to talk about it a
Yeah.
little bit later in the podcast.
okay,
Yeah. Here's an exciting thing. What time is it?
It's time for Scooter News.
news. And here's something very exciting that I found. Our friends down at Six Scooter got interviewed by a scooter magazine called
SIIK?
SIKK.
SIKK.
I don't know.
SIKK.
SIKK.
Yeah, 1K is silent.
As is the H.
Our friends Aaron and Andy down there, they have a podcast, Six Scootering in Southern Cal, and they just put out one about riding in groups and what's the etiquette of doing that. You might want to just take a listen if you haven't.
Some nice tips.
Yeah,
the parking lot, more dangerous than you think.
There you go. I remember when Keith went face down?
He
was just tired.
He was just sleepy. Anyway.
That was you.
It might have been me. We spoke with Howard Raines from the Phoenix area, Tucson area of Arizona. He's a very enthusiastic scooter rider, and he's the publisher of Scooter Zine, which, like I mentioned, is a scooter magazine. So, I think that what we ought to do here for Scooter News is take a listen to what's going on in the publishing business, in the scooter business.
Right.
Sitting with Howard Raines from Scooter Zine. Is that right?
Hi, how's it going? That's right, the Scooter Zine.
So I guess we're going to just kind of start at the beginning. I want to ask, just how did you get into scootering to start with?
Well, it was 2008, and one day my son came home from school and said, Dad, I think I want to buy a scooter because it'll be cheaper on gas and all the usual things. So the place he had seen him was Scoot Over here in Tucson. And so I took him over there, and a very nice lady there set him up for a test ride. And while he went out riding, she said, well, Mr. Raines, would you like to take a ride too? Well, I had a motorcycle in the past, but although it had been many years previous. And so I said, well, sure, I'll try it. Well, I tried it, and I bought one a couple of weeks later, actually before my son did. And it was a genuine Buddy 150. And I just fell in love with that thing and started riding all over and started riding with some friends. And before you knew it, I had picked up a Stella 150, and then I picked up a Honda Elite 80. And then I formed a club, and things just kind of snowballed. But I just loved everything about scooters and all the people.
Wow! So I heard a bunch of names of scooters that have also been part of our group, like the Elite 80
really?
Is how my brother started. He rode that all around the Kirkland area, and then we grew from there.
I think that's the most comfortable scooter I might ever have ridden.
Yeah, he's sorry he ever sold it.
Yeah, they're super.
So so we moved. Now you've bought these scooters, and you've been scootering for how many years again?
Let me see, that was 2008. So in April, it will be 12 years.
And now you have a scooter magazine.
Correct.
How did that get started?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. I had was getting Scoot magazine until it folded a few years ago.
Yep.
And I've done some desktop publishing back in the 80s and 90s for some of the places I worked. And so I had some desktop publishing experience. And so I had decided that I would create a newsletter just really for like the Tucson area or Southern Arizona. And then I ran it by some of the people in the club, and they said, well, that sounds like a fairly decent idea, but just here in Tucson, we kind of already reached most of those people. And so I thought about expanding it. Well, maybe I need to go a little further afield. And then I finally decided to settle on the Four Corners area and part of West Texas, because I've ridden in all those areas and I have friends in all those areas by attending rallies and, some things like that. So I thought, well, I'll just make it Four Corners specific and just talk about the roads and the clubs and the people in those areas. But so I posted it on some of the various forums and Facebook groups. Well, before I knew it, so I published a freebie to put out just as a kind of a free sample issue. And then the second issue, we decided to do it bi-monthly. The second issue was, the first one that people would pay for, because I decided I would do it as a subscription, just, $20 a year, which is basically about as much as it cost me to create the printed version. And but before I knew it, by the time that first issue was out, I had people from probably 10 or 15 different states that had requested subscriptions that weren't in the area that I was talking about. So I realized very quickly that there was a bigger interest other than just the four corners, the 4 or 5 states that I had focused on. So I think it was the third issue that I decided to just try to go national with it and start talking to people or a national level, and try to bring clubs from around the country and talk to writers, because every issue I interview an individual writer. I try to just make it somebody that's kind of average that everybody might know, but has a little bit of an interesting story to tell. So I started looking further afield, and here I am. We had our first anniversary issue was last issue, and and it's going fairly well.
Well, congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did notice that you have a nice formula talking about both about roads, about bikes, about riders, and about rallies. There's quite a nice area that you focus on all over the country, all the different rides going on.
Right. Yeah. Trying to, part of it was I need to do something that people aren't going to find for free, because, magazines are closing all over the place. Scoot is far from the only magazine that's shut down. And part of it is because there's so much information for free available on the internet, that I had to come up with something that you couldn't find. So by doing individual interviews and asking my own questions of club leaders and individual writers, and then there's also a separate section for shops, for individual dealers. Right. And I thought, well, this is a way that you can't get that information anywhere else. I'm going to talk to just these individual people, not celebrities that you can read about somewhere, but just average people. And that's how I figured I could create something that you just cannot find anywhere. It's unique.
Yeah, I read about our friends at Six Scooters in your last edition.
Yeah, great folks. I met them through Instagram, and we started following each other and talking a little bit through the message system there. And so I thought, well, hey, here's some great people to interview as well. And
you go to some rallies. You're getting ready to head off to one here shortly, right?
Yeah, High Rollers. We're riding up, so I'm going to try to pack as many issues of the magazine as I can on the scooter. But we're going to ride from here up to Las Vegas next Thursday and be up there for 4 days and come back down. I went to Mera Vespa. I've been to 3 of those, 2 of them that were in San Diego, and then I went to the one that was up in Indianapolis here a few years ago.
Nice. And what are you riding? What are you going to be riding up there?
A friend of mine showed me a Craigslist ad about 4 months ago for an $800 Piaggio X9 500.
Wow.
that was not running, and it hadn't run in 2 or 3 years. And he said, Howard, I can get that thing running for not very much money. You buy it, I'll get it going for you. And so that's what I'm riding up there. But before that, I've been riding several Honda Helixes or Helices.
Yeah.
Depending on what you want to call that. Yeah. I've got one that was my daily rider. I put 40,000 miles on it, and I've got another one that's attached to a sidecar that I put my grandkids in.
Good for you. So you have quite a collection, it sounds like.
Yeah, it gets to be a habit. You just, once you have 2, it's just really easy to pick up a third one or a fourth one. There, at one point, I had 6 in the driveway, and my wife said, "I think that might be enough, or maybe too many." So I've trimmed it down to 3 scooters and a motorcycle.
Oh, nice. And I get that you can only ride one.
Yeah, but and I get that a lot too, and it's like, yeah, but you have to have the right tool for the right job,
and you never know when one's going to go down. You're exactly right. So,
exactly. Whenever one goes down, I've got another one. I've got a backup.
So let's real quickly, let's just tell everybody how's the best way to find your publication.
Well, I've got a website, thescooterzine.com. And you can find me on Instagram, and we have a Facebook page as well, just like everybody does nowadays.
and you can get even a test or trial publication off your website, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's a free sample there to download.
Well, there is tons of great information, especially for passionate scooter riders that you have there. I really enjoyed reading through it, but I have one more question, and that is, have you ever had anything strange or paranormal or know of anybody that you ride with that has?
Well, I'm here in Arizona, and there are a lot of ghost towns. Of course, the term doesn't necessarily refer to the paranormal, but I kind of assumed that a question like that would be coming. And so I can tell you that I've gone into a couple of buildings because I ride mostly by myself, and I explore buildings and ghost towns, and I'll poke my head into a mine, although I'm not dumb enough to go down into them very far. But I went into a church that was just located, it's probably 30 miles from the closest town, but it was just this old church. And, I saw it sitting up in a field, and I went up to it, parked the bike, walked up to it, and, it was filled with animal droppings, but there was an old piano sitting up on the stage, and there were like 4 or 5 chairs that were in a semicircle kind of facing it. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. It almost looks like somebody just left here. Oh. And, I kind of walked around the sanctuary a little bit, and it must have been a Baptist church because there was a baptistry, which is, kind of a hole in the wall, and there's a tank behind that, and the pastor will bring somebody down, and they'll dunk them in the water for the baptism. And I could not bring myself to go look into the baptistry. I just got I was just terrified. The thought of going and looking into that hole and looking down to where there should just basically be a large bathtub there. But I don't know what was there because I had to leave that building. I got just very, very frightened.
Yeah, trust your instincts on those kind of things. When you get
that's like kind of my feeling about it is, when the heebie-jeebies get there, it's time to go somewhere else. So went back out into the sunshine, took some more pictures because I bring my camera with me everywhere I go. So.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you, Howard Raines and Scooter Zine, for spending a little time with the Chasing Ghosts podcast and sharing your really cool story and stories in this case.
And I've enjoyed following y'all's podcasts and listening to the scooter things and some of the interviews you've done here lately. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, we really appreciate that. Well, we're going to talk again, and we'll probably run across each other at a scooter rally or another. Are you going to go to the Spring Scoot in Portland?
Yeah, that one's a little too far away, and so I would like to, if the magazine gets a little more successful and I can actually, it pays for me to go places, I'll do that. But I have 5 children and some grandchildren, and I help them out financially when I need to. And I've got a fleet of scooters that need maintenance and good things like that. So.
All right, Howard.
But I do want to get to more rallies when I can.
Well, great. Well, best of luck with your project. And like I said, we're going to talk again.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Wow. HR's got a hell of a voice.
He does.
Who does it remind you of?
Bro, as you said, Brokaw-ish.
Maybe a cross between Tom Brokaw and Lou Rawls.
Yes, Lou Rawls.
He's got a great voice.
But why,
you'll never find.
Why didn't you ask him who does his illustrations?
Because it's if you read it, yeah, he tells a story about who does those illustrations right on his newspaper that you read.
Well, I didn't have time at the time you sent it to
you
me
didn't
to
read
it now.
Yeah.
So I scanned through it real quick.
I would
what
recommend
happened?
that
Your student teacher didn't show up one day, or what?
He's done. I'm back to work.
I would recommend anybody that loves scooters and scooter rallies and wants to hear about different shops would subscribe to the Scooter Zine, and it's an easy thing. We're subscribers. Chasing Ghosts is capital call.
That's right.
You each owe me $5.
Is Howard's information on the website?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, it's all there.
Or if you just want an old school magazine to hold on to,
you can do it digitally, or you can have it mailed to you. Yeah.
Get the print.
Yeah.
Well, I got both. I even pay I've got everything I could buy from him. I spent all the money.
Does he sell any drinks of any kind to enhance your brain
can we
capabilities?
So, what happens after Scooter News, guys? It's time for
That would be
Spooky news.
That's right. Hey, a little follow-up to our friend Allie. If you remember, we did a podcast a while back that was something about looking back through broken glass, and it was about a friend of ours that, actually a friend of mine, that has been haunted by her dad for quite some time, and he leaves piles of shards of glass and broken glass.
But he's passed.
All around. He'd passed 12 years ago, yeah. And so she sends me this text, and she said, so I went to the doctor because I had this bump. I had this thing on my finger. I thought I had a growth on my finger. And I was kind of worried about it. In fact, she was thinking she was going to get stitches and all that thing. So she goes to the doctor. He gets in there. He gets his glasses on. He gets in there, and he starts looking around. And he pulled something out of her finger.
Can I guess?
Can you guess it?
Can I guess that it was
Yes.
a sliver of glass?
It was a sliver of glass. And she says she has absolutely no memory recently of anything like that, being around. So no memory of anything poking into her finger.
Good save. Good save.
So really, really strange. And she shared that and wanted us to know that she went to the doctor because she thought she had this growth, and it was a piece of glass that was stuck into her finger. So this continues. This is an ongoing story, and as more things happen, I will certainly share it here on the podcast. And then here's another follow-up. If you remember last time when we were talking about the ghost writers, remember we talked about ghost writers in Ohio?
Fukushima or something like that?
Well, I brought up Fukushima.
Fukushima.
And I said that there were taxi drivers that were claiming that they were having people jumping into the back of their cabs and disappearing. Excuse me. So here's a follow-up
Or
to
is that just what they tell the dispatcher when they come back with not enough money?
Right. So this is a follow-up to that comment about Fukushima, taxi drivers, and the 2011 tsunami in Japan from odditycentral.com. And I'm just going to kind of read it because it's just great. And they say, in a chilling turn of events, some taxi drivers in Japan are claiming to have picked up ghost passengers in the aftermath of the tsunami that devastated the nation in March of 2011. As many as 7 of the 100 drivers interviewed by Yuka Kodo, a student of sociology in Tokyo, admitted having encountered phantom fares. Kudo conducted the interviews as part of her graduation thesis.
Feces?
Traveling to the coastal town of Ishinomaki every week for a year to speak to taxi drivers waiting for fares. She asked over 100 drivers the same question. Did you have any unusual experiences after the disaster? Many of them ignored her. Some got angry, but 7 drivers agreed to describe their strange encounters. Okay.
7 of them.
I didn't make this stuff up. I don't make this stuff up. One driver recounted a particularly unsettling story in the summer of 2011. So this would only be a few months after the tsunami. A woman dressed in a coat climbed into his taxi near Ishinomaki. Say it. Somebody else say it. Station. Please don't.
I did not know you knew Japanese.
Konnichiwa.
She said,
My friends.
Please go to the Mainamahama station. When he pointed out that there was nothing left standing in the district, she asked him in a shivering voice, have I died? The driver immediately turned around only to find the back seat empty.
Get that? Yes, that's the noise.
Another driver recalled how a young man who looked to be in his 20s got into his taxi. When the driver looked in the rearview mirror for direction, the man kept pointing towards the front. The driver then asked for a destination, to which he replied, mountain. When the taxi reached the area, the man had disappeared from the taxi.
How do you say mountain in Japanese, I wonder?
Hayayoama.
Oh, you are good.
It's easy to dismiss these stories as hallucinations or imaginations,
Yes,
but the
it is.
driver's logs are proof that they really might have occurred. When these ghosts got into their cars, the drivers started the meter, which is recorded. So even though these passengers disappeared during the ride, they were still counted as clients. The drivers then had to pay their fares out of their own pockets. Some of the drivers even wrote down their experiences in their logs.
But they still had to pay.
Yeah, they had to pay for
Yeah,
it. So why would they make it up? Why would they even make it up? Why not say nothing? right? So all of these phantom travelers were described as young, which compels Kudo to believe that they were indeed victims of the 2011 tsunami. Young people feel strongly chagrined at their deaths when they cannot meet people they love. As they want to convey their bitterness, they may have chosen taxis, which we all get mad at, which are like private rooms as a medium to do so. I don't know what that really means, but I think English might be her second language.
Yeah. But kudos to Kudo.
Right. Interestingly, none of the drivers reported feeling any fear, instead holding their special passengers in reference.
Was she able to pass her thesis?
Thesis? You know,
You call it a thesis.
no,
I hope
you
it
had
passed
a
all right.
All right, it's with the Amish. They perceive the encounters as a spiritual experience meant to be remembered and cherished forever. It's not strange to see a ghost, chair driver said. If I encounter a ghost again, I will accept it as my passenger. Kudo herself was moved by the interviews. I learned that the death of each victim carries importance, and I want to convey that to other people. According to the official records, over 15,000 people died during the magnitude 9 earthquake that lasted for 6 minutes and triggered a 133-foot high tsunami that swept 6 miles inland. Numerous sightings of ghosts and spectral figures have been reported in residential districts of the affected areas of the aftermath of the disaster. Okay?
Wow.
Oh,
And it was, we all saw that in real time. It was
well, a year or two
unbelievable.
later, we got it on our coast.
You know, it
ship.
reminds me of the
That's
old.
right.
That story reminds me of the old joke. What happened to the lady who walked backwards into the airplane's propeller? Disaster.
I'm not
Thank
sure
you,
I get
Lizard.
it, but I'm going to laugh anyway.
Disaster. You get it?
Disaster. Now I do. Oh, man. You know what?
Is that from Grandpa Jack?
Yeah, with that one.
This is Stephanie at the Spunky Monkey Bar and Grill in Auburn, Washington, and you're listening to Chasing Ghosts on Scooters and Bars. And now back to the boys.
Okay, we're back now.
We needed that break.
Yeah, we needed a break. I saw you guys all take a sip of your cocktail while we did that.
Trying to stay hydrated, 1 per hour.
Okay, I'd like to move on to our featured interview today.
Good idea.
You mean there's more?
We're going to be talking with Mike Murphy, the owner of Magic Bus Tours in Fort Collins, Colorado. He does lots of really popular tours. He's the #1 tour operator in all of Fort Collins.
Hey, about time we meet up with
Go,
another
Mike.
number
Go,
one.
Mike.
Yeah, he also does a ghost tour and a craft beer tour and a beer and ghost tour. I mean, he does everything that's just up our alley. He's also a scooter rider. So why don't we just...
Should be good.
Yeah, let's just get to it with Mike Murphy, or as you call him, Mark,
The Murph. He's got to be named the Murph.
from historic and haunted Fort Collins, Colorado. And we are talking to Mike Murphy from Fort Collins, Colorado. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We, as you know, we chase after ghosts on little scooters in bars, and you do a tour. You're part of the. Can you tell us a little bit about your company and what you do there?
Sure. Well, about 7 years ago, I started Magic Bus Tours here in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we are a tour transportation and team build company, with sightseeing tours being one of the larger services that we offer, and a full gamut of tours designed to highlight a lot of the cool things that draw folks to northern Colorado, primarily the craft beer scene. So we do a lot of brewery tours on foot and by bus, farm to table style tours, a plethora of different history tours, and then we delve into the darker side of local history with a nice little handful of ghost tours as well.
Nice, and that's what we're interested in. Are your ghost tours? But before we get into that, I also heard that you walked the Appalachian Trail.
Sure did.
You hiked it, I guess.
I did. I did a little combination of the two.
How long did that take?
I took my time. It took me 6 months. I could have done it a lot more quickly, but I had nothing really to get back to in life, and so it was just a comfortable place to take a pause.
Wow. And there's a lot of stories that I've read about that trail, and both of this world and other worlds. Did you have any experiences on there?
Well, I had a number of absolutely wonderful experiences. When it comes to the side of the paranormal and being unsure of what you're experiencing, I did have one event that comes to mind, and that was in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. There is a beautiful spot there off the Appalachian Trail that's called Spy Rock. And Spy Rock was reported to be a Confederate lookout during the times of the Civil War. And it's this rock outcropping that juts out of the mountain. And there's no clear path to the top. You've just sort of got to climb and scramble your way up to the summit. And once you get up there, it's no more than, I'd say, 30 feet by 30 feet, and provides just a splendid 360-degree view of the surroundings, which made it such a great point for Confederates to watch from. And I hadn't seen anybody on the trail for about a day and a half or so, and I had heard of this beautiful spot and climbed to the top of the rock and decided it was going to make a swell place to bed down for the evening. There was a small little bit of grass, maybe a few feet long, and I pitched a tent down there and sat staring across the Blue Ridge Mountains and watched the storm slowly roll in and the sun set. And as the storm came, I climbed into my tent and I sort of fell off to sleep. And I woke up at some point in the night, and I was aware of the energy there at that particular location, and that it had seen some action during the time of the Civil War. But I had sort of tucked all that into the back of my brain. But I was awoken at about 2-3 in the morning. I had the great pleasure of not knowing what time it was for about 6 months. But whatever time it was in the morning, there was commotion outside of the tent. And that high bit of rock, there's no way that a fox could get up there or a rabbit could jump up there, that there would be some animal that could have reached that summit and be walking around out there. If there had been a person there, there would have been a flashlight, and I called out, is anybody out there? And it's such a small little area that it surely would have been audible when I asked that question. And there simply was no reply. And I heard commotion outside of my tent for what lasted maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
Wow.
And I was petrified. I picked up my journal and I started to journal about the experience. And I just told myself, this is my home too. This is where I live, in the woods. And so I have to be comfortable with anything else that's out here, whether it be good or malevolent. And so I sat and waited and journaled, and eventually, as those minutes passed by, the sounds dissipated, and I drifted back off to sleep. And I woke up the next day, beautiful, bright, clear, sunny morning, and carried on north. But that was probably the most intense experience I had while on the trail, where I was pretty certain that there was energy present.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the commotion outside the tent. Did you have any commotion inside the tent over your 6-month journey? Never mind.
Read his journal.
Thanks for sharing that. We looked up that particular spot while you were talking, and took a gander at it on some photos online. And you're right, that's a beautiful but desolate little area there, or at least I guess independent sort of little Spy Rock lookout spot. So I'll quit mumbling over that one. Let's get back to the magic bus and the tours and some of the things that happen in Old Town Fort Collins.
Sure.
Your ghost tour, does it feature some specific places? I did a little search around there, and I heard about something called the Walrus Man and some other stuff, but you probably have some things you've run into that everybody would love to hear about.
We sure do have a great number of spots here in Fort Collins where local folks and visitors have had a good number of experiences. And the story of the Walrus Man certainly is an interesting one. but there are so many others to choose from. And as a theme here seems to surround watering holes, we've got a lot of bars in town where there's a good deal of action, and we developed Booze and Brews Haunted Pub Crawl to serve as an outlet to share some of those stories with folks. And a bunch of those watering holes around town where people have experiences were reincarnated as bars, but prior to that were just local businesses, and at many of those spots. No, unfortunately, there were unsavory things that took place.
Nice.
And we were
one of them. Well, I was not even there. But these legends certainly live on. And the fun thing is, while a lot of these things took place in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the experiences that people have are present day. These are things that carry on. Some of the spaces, one in particular that I can tell you about, there's a bar in Old Town that today is known as High Point. It first opened in 1906. It was the Commercial Bank and Trust. It was one of the first banks to be brought into Fort Collins, and banking was really important to these early Western pioneer towns because you had folks coming from the east with grand visions, but not the resources to turn them into realities. So this bank settled in town in 1906, and that year they brought in a head teller by the name of Clark Smith. So this bar has been multiple things for the years. It's actually been 4 different bars just during the short 10 years that I've been in Fort Collins. But every tenant that has occupied that space and employees over the years have shared similar experiences. So they hired this guy, Clark Smith, to be the head teller. They actually headhunted him from the city of Fort Collins. He was the treasurer for the city. So, the guy had a stellar reputation. He was exceptionally trustworthy, was really good with money, and he was the perfect guy to hold this spot. And he loved his job, took it exceptionally seriously, and everything was going really well. The guy would sing at work, he would whistle while he worked, people would come in just to chat him up. And in 1909, only a few years after he retired on, there $1,500 went missing from the bank.
Uh-oh.
And, back in 1909, that was a pretty hefty sum of money.
It still is for us.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no doubt about that. You can get a nice little scooter for $1,500.
There you go. It's probably Chinese, but
so he is the one accused of embezzling these funds. He's the only guy that's got access to the safe, and he throws his hands up and says, why would you guys think I would do this? I've got everything to lose. I love my job. I've got this great reputation. But despite his declaring his innocence, the people in town don't believe him. And essentially his name turns to mud and his reputation is shot. And he tries to convince the community that he's not guilty of this crime. But the town that he loved and the job that he worked so hard for both reject him. And in 1909, in late October, he lets himself early into the Commercial Bank and Trust, and he blows his head off. And they find him, the other employees of the bank come in for their shift, and they find him there in the bank dead. And he just was driven mad by being rejected from this community that he so much loved. The bank closed only a year after that. Everything back then rode on a bank's reputation. If you're going to leave money somewhere, you got to know that it's safe. They're not giving away free toasters to get your business. It's all, can we trust you? And once the idea of trust was gone, the bank.
Oh, we lose you? There you are.
That spot over the years, it took on a whole bunch of different faces. And one of those was a newspaper outfit. And this was back in the 50s when some of these accounts were first documented. And what the folks that worked at that newspaper would oftentimes report hearing were two things. One, the sound of coins being clanked together, and secondarily, the sound of whistling. And yes, indeed. And these very things were reported not just by the newspaper, but over the years by subsequent bars that would occupy that very space. There's some, if you go onto YouTube and you type in there Astoria Bar, there was a Denver paranormal investigation team that came in and did an investigation. All the owners that have run that space, at their place of business, they want to know what they bring in this paranormal investigation team, and they actually have recordings,
EVPs, yeah,
that they documented of this whistling taking place there in the bar.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we've got a couple of photographs. I'm happy to send them to you that locals have captured over the years at that particular bar of an apparition sitting in different places throughout that location. And it's one of the spots where I have had unsettling experiences as well. A part of my job when I was giving these tours, I no longer give the ghost tours because I just honestly don't enjoy sharing these types of stories with folks. It's just the content is very heavy, and the stories are just very heavy. And we were telling the story actually in the old vault that's in there, and we were talking about Mr. Smith and how he killed himself and may still well be there. And there was a girl that was taking videos the entire time, and she was polite enough to wait until I finished my story. And she said, "There's something I got to show you." And I said, "What's that?" And she pulled out her camera and showed me a series of photographs that she had taken. And she said, "While you were telling the story of Clark Smith, there was a small white light that started by your feet and gradually came up towards your legs, up onto the bar table by your face, then over to the faces of the patrons sitting next to you, and then scooted off towards the ceiling of the vault."
An orb.
I gave her a look at this to say, "You're absolutely nuts." But then she showed me a series of photographs that she had captured that I'm happy to email off to you guys.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, that might be the proof I need.
Such things where there is this ball of light that's moving from my feet in a succession of 4 photographs and slowly moving up towards the side of the wall while the camera position remains the same.
Oh, that's great.
So it was pretty compelling, and I personally don't know on all the stories, and I have.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, there you are.
So it was incredibly compelling.
Yeah.
One of the things I so love about running ghost tours are the stories that you hear as a tour guide, because of course, just in sharing stories with folks, everybody's so excited to share their own stories. And while I personally have not had much happen to me on a paranormal level, and I myself try to have a healthy amount of skepticism, I have heard so many stories and so many accounts that I just can't convince myself that there isn't something going on.
Yeah, you're a lot like Lonnie, our part of our group. He finally got a little haunt, and it bothered him. And Mark here is a true skeptic. He thinks it's all bullshit. And I've had multiple.
Well, Colorado's another pot state like Washington. So. You never know.
And I'm not sure about Keith. You've never really voiced your opinion one way or the other.
As you know, Mark, I'm open to anything.
Right. So you also mentioned that maybe you've spent some time on 2 wheels.
I sure have.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, when I was down in Miami, I had a motorcycle just for fun, a little 87 Barago, one of the first V-twins they made. And I just had that as a second vehicle I just farted around with on beautiful sunny days, which were plentiful down there. But my favorite experience on 2 wheels was on a scooter.
Nice.
I lived in Taiwan for a year, and scooter was my sole means of transportation. I had a 150cc Yamaha, and I lived up in the mountains, and for about a year, that's how I got absolutely everywhere. And I'm just fortunate to have survived it because they're absolutely nuts.
Well, that's so cool. So you do haunted bar tours. I read there are over 70 craft breweries in that area. Does that sound right? And you're a two-wheeler. I mean, you should just come to Washington and go for a ride with us.
Boy, that sounds absolutely delightful.
We have an extra scooter
Or two.
or two. Yeah.
Hey, do they call you the Murph? Is that your nickname around town?
Murph, yeah.
That's so cool.
So I guess we've covered ghosts, we've covered scooters,
one quick question:
and bars,
what's
and
the seating?
Smart.
What's the seating capacity on the Magic Bus?
So we've got a few different buses that we operate, but our primary tour vehicle is a seating capacity at 20. We try to keep it pretty intimate.
Well, that's a nice party.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Is there a pole in the middle of it?
Well, the pole is on the side over by the front door.
And the Kowalskis are in town.
Well, it's actually a handrail, but you would be amazed at how creative people get.
No, I wouldn't. I've been on some of those tours. Well, tell us the easiest way to get in touch with you for anybody that's going to Fort Collins and wants to enjoy your tours.
Sure. Well, if you're heading out here to northern Colorado, just give us a look up at magicbustours.com, and you'll see our full gamut of tours here in the next week or so. We'll be posting our 2020 season schedule, and we'd love to have you all out this way. And I just got to say here from this end that what you guys are doing is super cool. I mean, what an incredible combination of elements and how fun. I mean, it's things like what you guys are doing that make the world a better place. So
That's why we're number one.
Yeah, thanks, Murph. Yeah, we are the number one scooter podcast in the world that features ghosts and bars.
I love it.
Hey, Mike, I have a question. What
Sure.
as far as, let's say that 6 or 7 endeavoring fellows wanted to get out to Fort Collins and ride scooters, is it a 4-day trip? Is it a good place to be for a 4-day trip? Wanting to hit old
Well, the Fort Collins in particular, 4 days.
or surrounding areas?
Oh, certainly. I with a 4-day trip between outdoor adventures in the mountains and some small little urban experiences, you could pack 4 days very happily, no doubt. Yeah.
Nice. Well,
It'll be on our list.
We're going to be. Well, it's the next state over. We made it all the way to Montana. Is Colorado on the other side of it, or am I missing a state?
A little south.
It would be south.
We'll get him a map in a minute.
You're close. You gotta hop over to Wyoming for Montana.
All right, whatever. Hey, Murph, thank you so much for taking the time with the guys at Chasing Ghosts, and we're going to talk again.
Well, thanks to all of you, and I'll happily host you if you head out this way, and it was a pleasure spending some time with you.
Awesome.
Cool, man.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Murph is a great guy.
Yeah.
Sounds
I
like.
enjoyed that.
Knows his history.
What's his history?
He knows his history.
Oh, right, he does. Well, I mean, I like the fact that he didn't try to tell us 10 stories. He told us a couple of just really good, detailed stories.
I like the bank story.
I like the Appalachian Trail story.
Of
Yeah.
the commotion.
Yeah. What I don't get is when he said he heard a commotion and he decided to pick up his journal. I would have picked up my handgun.
Well, he didn't carry a handgun, but he did 6 months on the Appalachian Trail. Oh,
That's
my
a journey.
God.
That is a journey.
You know he has some stories he couldn't tell us on this podcast. So, I think that, and Keith asked the question, is this going to be a good place to ride for 4 days? Sounds like it might
Sounds
be.
like it would be.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he knows his history, but he seems to feel his history too.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And, one thing that we didn't bring up, but I saw when I was reading about his company and online about Fort Collins, is that Main Street USA at Disneyland is modeled after downtown Old Town Fort Collins.
Really?
Right, which just has tons of history.
So
And
is it the second happiest place on earth? Maybe.
Third. How many Disneylands are there?
Has anybody been there? I never have.
I've never been there. I've been to
I'd like
Boulder and I've been to Denver, but I've never been to Fort Collins.
Never been to me.
But I think it speaks to evolution though too, because he talked about the bank owner couldn't deal with rejection and people doubting him,
Right.
so he killed himself. You, Mark, have persevered through endless rejection.
Yeah, mostly sitting around this podcast table.
You are always getting rejected and stepped on. Yet you just keep chin up and moving forward.
It's like water off a duck's back, right?
Well, good for you.
That's right. Oh, and fuck you.
Transition. We need a break.
God. Yeah, why don't we do a transition? Which one should we do?
Reject
Who
your
do we
right
want to
hand.
hear from? How about the Poodle Dog restaurant?
Lovely.
Let's take a break
love
because
the
everybody's
pop
tired of
room.
this dribble.
This is Day at the iconic Poodle Dog restaurant in Fife, Washington, and you are listening to Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars.
So,
by the way,
yes,
if they're on the menu, you have to have the fish tacos at the Poodle Dog. As unlikely as that sounds,
it does.
oh, they're awesome.
Did
Seriously.
you know that my sister's picture used to be on the menu at the Poodle Dog?
As the Daffodil Queen, right?
Yeah.
So did my dad's as a pastry chef in 1949.
I did not know that. And
Yes,
I
sir.
knew your dad for all my
Go to the Boar's Nest.
57 years.
You can see it in the Boar's Nest.
Wow.
That is unbelievable and a lot of synchronicity. I mean, think about it. Two guys sitting in,
That's what I
in
was
this,
thinking.
four of us sitting
Synchronicity.
around a podcast table, and two of the people, family members, have been printed on the menu of one of the oldest restaurants in Tacoma.
An iconic Fife.
Yeah,
I do
store.
remember your wife's photo on the.
his sister. It's not his wife.
I didn't marry
It was
myself.
only
Oh,
one.
wait a minute.
Only
He's
one
not
time
from
when he was
Virginia.
really young.
He's not from Virginia.
Have you got any new bikes in the family?
How's that puppy?
Oh,
She
man.
was wearing a nice dress.
So we have ridden a bit lately here in this really mild winter that we've had. Today it's over 60 degrees outside and sunny. And when we're done with this podcast, guess what we're going to do?
I'm going home.
Yeah, I think
have
I'm
to
in the
go home,
doghouse.
I'm going to go for a ride.
I'm riding an illegal motorcycle.
But let's talk a little bit about where we've been recently on our rides. We went to some of the tried and true places, right? We did a spin up into Buckley. We saw Janelle, our bartender up there. She was in a reasonably good mood.
Yep.
She was very
Not
nice.
terrible. And she gave me a hug at the end.
You broke her down.
I did. Well, I stood there with my arms out for like 5 minutes. She finally walked over. She walked over and gave me the side hug.
And the rejection treatment doesn't stop you.
But we did have a great ride where we went to two bars. Lonnie, you sourced them.
Right.
And we started at the Brass Lantern. We started at some other place, but it wasn't a new place. But we ended up, the first never been to bar that none of us on the ride have been to was a Brass Lantern on 62nd and Pacific.
Yeah. East
in
side of Tacoma, which is really going through a gentrification right now. It's,
Right, which can be a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it was a tidy little place. Remember how clean? It was clean. The service was very, very good. I think
Yeah,
Stephanie was our server.
She was wonderful.
Yeah, she was.
Bob and Teresa met us driving their Corvette that day. Remember that?
Driving their 62, whatever year that Corvette. 63 Corvette.
Yeah.
And joined us. And we had a burger. The burger was decent, very good.
Yep.
I mean, I would never push that one off the table. It was a very, very good burger. And there's a new sticker in the bathroom. So if you
there we go.
get to the Brass Lantern and you see the Chasing Ghost sticker, poke at us on
Facebook, Snapchat.
Tinder,
Tinder.
Grindr,
Just keep swiping.
Grindr for you. And we'll buy a drink, maybe. And then from there, we headed south 2 blocks to 60th, dropped down the hill, or 56th maybe. We dropped down the hill and ended up at the Mountain.
How was the bartender there?
So let me tell you my story about the bartender there. Lonnie, you'll remember when we walked in. So will you, Keith. Pendamanono. Can you put your phone down and pay attention to the podcast?
I'm trying to find a picture of your girlfriend here.
Which one?
The firehouse.
She's sitting in the other room. It's a good thing my wife doesn't
that's
listen
awkward.
to this podcast. Anyway, the bartender there was a I would say he was 30 years old, big beard oil guy.
Beard oil.
I think he was old. He was older than 30,
maybe 40. But anyway,
I don't think so. I think
So a lot younger than you.
And he we all came in and sat down. He kind of glared at us, and he said, "Hey, listen, I can't give you table service. I'm the only guy here." And we were like, "Wow, it's just me? What? Just me here?" You know. And so we sat there. We went, said, "No problem." We ordered some. It's just beer and wine place, right?
Yep.
We all ordered something to drink, and I went into the jukebox and I put on a Ryan Adams song.
That's right.
And he walks over to me and says, "You know, he's a sexual predator." Now, first of all, he's on the
And Mark
jukebox.
says, "So am I."
That's funny.
And he's not really inaccurate, because if you read the New York Times story about him, he might have misbehaved a bit.
So he would be a he too,
No.
not a me too,
So
because he's also a sexual predator. Those are the he twos.
no.
He too is a sexual predator.
Okay, I'm glad that you came up with your own hashtag.
Is that
Mark.
Howard Weinstein?
Weinstein.
He's
an Amish guy. Right.
Excommunicated Amish.
So anyway, I mentioned to him that even though he had misbehaved, his music is so good that I still had to listen to it once in a while. And he looked at me for a minute, and then he sort of overcame his disappointment with me and said, "Well, yeah, Cold Roses is one of my favorite records." Yeah. Which is one
So
of
he was a
Ryan.
fan.
Yeah, he was a fan, but he wanted to make sure he knew that Ryan Adams had misbehaved. So Ryan, I know you're a listener of the podcast. We still love you, but please clean up your act, right?
Remember, the Mountain Tavern, though, had some incredible fried chicken.
Well, not only that, you picked up the whole tab. There were 6 of us.
I did, didn't I?
And we had 2 rounds of drinks, and we
one
had
of the day,
chicken,
I might
and
add.
you took chicken home.
I did.
How much was the bill?
Her name was Chicken, and sure, I know. The chicken, I don't know, it was 30 or 40.
You told me
it wasn't.
$27 for the
20
everything.
That's right. It was.
We walked
It was
out.
very
We
inexpensive.
walked out to our
Yeah.
scooters, and you were laughing, and you go, "Look at the tab." So I bought 1 round of drinks at the mill, and it was like $60. And you did food
58 with your meal card.
You're right. I do have
In the interest of accuracy, I do believe the Mountain has cocktails as well.
No, I don't think so.
I think they do. They list them on there.
Fact
He's
checker.
checking the phone again.
I am the fact checker.
So we've been growing a bunch lately. We want to thank our listeners. Our listening ship is up significantly.
Listening ship?
Yeah, whatever the fuck it is. And we want to thank you listeners, for making that happen. And please tell your friends to subscribe and or show them how to listen to a podcast. Can't tell you how many times we're talking to somebody about it, and they say, "Hey, we'd love to hear it, but we don't understand how to listen to it." So grab their phone from them, open up their podcast app, and subscribe to Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars, and show them how to listen to other great things that are out there, because there are some really good scooter podcasts. Not quite as popular as this one,
There's
but
only one number one.
yeah, and check them out. Also, we want to thank Howard Raines of Scooter Zine and Mike Murphy of Magic Bus, Magic Bus Tours in Fort Collins. And if you can, check them out. Subscribe to the magazine, and when you're in Fort Collins, make sure you over-tip those tour guides at the Magic Bus.
Amen to that.
Yep. And thanks to Weeknights for the original music, right?
Our house band.
It really isn't. I keep mentioning they've got a new record coming out, and he just keeps trying to perfect it. So I don't know. Maybe he's got a new record coming out.
One of these days.
Until then, be safe out there. Head on a swivel. Keep the rubber side down. And, I don't know, ride, baby, ride. Copyright 2020 by Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars.